I'm gonna be honest, Exoprimal's pretty fun. Slicing through dinos as Fat Genji is genuinely some of the most dumb fun I've had with a game, at least recently. It's honestly one of the highlights of Exoprimal. I care about the game because it's fun, and that's why I'm making the video, to let more people know about it, and to also share my thoughts on how Capcom made it so that Exoprimal would inevitably fail. This may be obvious to some of you, but the game did not succeed. You may have never even heard of it. I don't even think Capcom marketed the game well, especially after release. So I'm here today to cover why the game didn't pull in an audience and how it shot itself in the foot, stopping it from any possible large or even really small-scale success, especially for Capcom standards. The game is only really alive from Game Pass. No one is really playing the game through Steam, and it's obvious. I played Exoprimal during its beta period and genuinely had a fun time. Was it a fun time that was worth $60 in gaming terms? Absolutely not. But that was just the beta. Surely the game, post-launch, would be different, right? Wrong. It stayed the same. Still fun, but not $60 fun. Spinning around as Fat Genji can't carry a full price tag for a game, even being as fun as it is. That being said, I didn't buy the game until recently. I just played it during the free weekend it had for its 4-month anniversary, and obviously the beta. I put 3 hours in the beta and 16 on the free weekend, totaling a decent amount of time in the game for free before determining its worth, which I'll get to shortly. But before I go any further, I figured I'd mention the whole subscribe button and all of the stuff that comes along with it. Do with that information what you will. From a mostly outside perspective, I can come up with 4 reasons why Exoprimal failed as a product and as a game. Its gameplay formula, pricing, minimal game modes, and the fact that the game is always online are the 4 reasons. I'll mostly ignore the obvious reason why a multiplayer game failed, in that it didn't have a lot of players. I'm looking into why it didn't obtain or retain a lot of players. For those who don't know, Exoprimal is a team-based PvPvE shooter where tanks, DPS, and supports combine their strength to defeat dinosaurs and win the game faster than the opposing team. What's great is you don't have to worry about not knowing if you're behind or ahead of the enemy team. Be prepared to constantly be reminded you are worse or better than the enemy, even if the difference is microscopic.
You are completing objectives slower than the enemy team.
When your match is generated, there are various objectives such as protecting, escorting, or destroying objects, and most commonly wiping out various types of dinosaurs. After completing the first half of each match, depending on what mode you queued for, PvE or PvP, the map will change and you will have to continue progressing fast, while having the option, depending on your mode, to be able to interact with the opposition and slow them down in direct combat in a mech, or as a controlled dinosaur. During this round, the team that was further behind in the first half will be able to possess a dinosaur first as a means to catch up. Since the main goal of the game is speed, finishing all objectives faster than the enemy team means you win, obviously, and possessing these dinos can be a good way of securing a win or snowballing from a loss into a win. So, the game isn't like every other hero shooter coming out lately thanks to Overwatch's release in 2016. Exoprimal is unique, but to some detriment. There's no existing crowd for Exoprimal per se. Hero shooters don't usually have PvE, and usually when games have character abilities and are PvPvE, they are considered MOBAs. Exoprimal doesn't come close to being a MOBA, and is its own game, so would have to make its own player base from an existing PvP crowd. On the note of pre-established player bases, Exoprimal loses out on more strictly casual players. If someone wanted to play a game about killing hordes of dinosaurs without having to worry about PvP of any kind, they could just play something like Orion Prelude for only $1. Exoprimal doesn't reliably offer something that can be played without considering other players' input. There's almost always going to be some instance of PvP in some way in most matches of Exoprimal. Even with the best case scenario, you still lack the ability to create a custom mode where you and a friend do a mission alone without even playing with bots. If you're looking for either strictly PvE or PvP, you don't really get that with Exoprimal. Let's talk about the story. I don't really care, no one does. There's a lot of dialogue. If I paid attention and wanted a story, then it might be a cool dino sci-fi, but I don't know, I didn't really pay attention. I'm glad the voice actors got work and that sweet Capcom money, because there's a lot of dialogue, jeez. The storytelling approach may have detracted from Exoprimal's success, because the story is presented after a set amount of missions in cutscenes or lore access in the main menu. These cutscenes will still take place after a unique mission, or just in general when partied up with friends. The storytelling format either encourages players to play less of the game by keeping up with the story, or they could just skip the cutscenes. If you're playing with friends and anyone wants to watch the cutscenes or read up on lore, then someone will have to wait. It's this approach that can make people care less about parts of the game, therefore affecting its experience as a whole. The game is always online, encouraging you to play with others, but also encourages you to experience the story independently. The whole system is just counterintuitive. The existence of Exoprimal's story might be why the game is sold at AAA price standards. But the story isn't important on its own, or at least isn't a key reason for many people, if any, to buy the game. Either way, the game was pretty much guaranteed to not bring in players due to its first-of-a-kind nature, which will limit people from feeling comfortable with the completely new gameplay concepts and mechanics. The $60 price tag makes the game feel more like a commitment than a fun game to play with friends to pass the time. That's all to say, the first thing people see when purchasing a game will be the price tag. Exoprimal is not a $60 game and has never felt like it. It's an always online multiplayer game that has lots of elements that free-to-play multiplayer games would have to make money, which for free games is more understandable. Exoprimal, being sold at $60, does not need a battle pass, which has a premium tier that can only be purchased with real money. It does not need several cosmetic DLCs, a Head Start DLC, and even more, and doesn't need loot boxes. Even if you can't purchase them, it still gives off a scummy vibe. If a game is in the $60 plus range, it shouldn't have microtransactions so prevalent. If the game was priced lower, which it should have been, then these microtransactions would have made a lot more sense and would have probably gotten more purchases. So, what would be a good price for Exoprimal? And are we talking about removing all of the battle passes and microtransactions? How much should microtransactions and battle passes reduce the game's price, if not 100%? And I hate to give these games credit, Warzone, Fortnite, Apex Legends, and League of Legends. These games, mostly due to their scale, have seen financial growth while being free. Exoprimal could have been free, but this would have been a large risk on Capcom's part. People may have never invested into anything in the game, or if executed wrong, the game could have become a pay-to-win mess. I mean, the $60 game already launched with a Head Start kit for only $15, as well as getting shortcut DLC throughout its lifecycle. So, if the game were free to play, it may have been too pay to win to encourage purchases, and no one wants that. Well, what value could the game have been if not free? The first time Exoprimal was on sale, it was $40, and in my eyes that could have been an okay value for some people. I personally would have waited for a sale if it launched at $40, but would have taken a moment to consider getting the game on launch. Games coming out after Exoprimal priced at $40 had great success, like Helldivers 2 and Palworld. A $40 price tag on Exoprimal wouldn't be as deterring as the $60 launch price, but who's to say if that were to even drive purchases? If the game launched at $30, I may have bought it on launch, and anything lower would have been a more likely purchase. However, there is one thing I've failed to mention on the front of committing to buy the game: having people to play it with. You see, after the game was announced, I told my friends about it, and they seemed loosely interested. We played a PvE Dino game before, mostly for irony's sake, as mentioned earlier. Orion Prelude is a fun time and only $1. Anyway, that aside, convincing my friends to buy Exoprimal at $60, $40, or even a year later at $20 never succeeded. If the game were originally priced in the $20 to $40 range, it maybe would have been an easier group purchase like Palworld or Helldivers 2, which we all got shortly after their launch. As mentioned earlier, Exoprimal is unique and doesn't directly cater to existing player bases from other games. If the main gameplay concept of Exoprimal interests you and you want just that, sure, the game's for you. Otherwise, good luck. Up until you beat the game, which took me over 20 hours and could take you longer due to progression feeling random, there is only one game mode you can play: Dino Survival. Dino Survival is the default mode where you need to beat your objectives faster than the opposition. You can choose PvE for indirect interference with the other team, or PvP for direct interference, and that's where your options stop. Occasionally, you'll get to play a story mission that combines two teams together in the second half to do a boss fight, or to kill a ton of dinos as a singular 10-mech team. This is rare and cannot directly be queued for. As someone who prefers PvE and mostly wanted to play the game for PvE with friends, it was minorly upsetting that I couldn't have this as a main game mode option on the game's launch. Sure, it was added much later into the game's lifecycle under custom games. First off, adding custom games 9 months after launch in the fourth and quite possibly final title update did not help Exoprimal's case. Custom games alleviate some of the game's lack of choice and could inspire more of the exclusively PvE crowd to play the game, if not start getting into the game holistically. If custom games were implemented in some way when the game was launched, it could have performed better. Maybe since custom games halt progression in the story, they could be unlocked after playing a few matches, or even after progressing through the majority of the game. Custom games aren't even executed that well, to be honest. To even launch a custom game, you must have someone else in your lobby, which means you can't start a match on your own and have people start joining in whenever. You can't really access too many settings, so the games aren't truly custom. I can understand why you need to start the matches with another player in your lobby. It's to make sure that the servers stay full. But if Exoprimal had custom servers or a server browser, then a lot of my issues with custom games would be gone. For example, take a dead game like Dirty Bomb. I mostly mention it because it's free, fun, and, well, it's relevant. Dirty Bomb has a quick play/join option, or you can look for a specific mode, or just look at the server browser. Server browsers and custom servers help make games replayable and can make games survive. Games that don't have much longevity can live on without developer support if there are custom servers. If there were two big changes that could give Exoprimal a resurgence, it would be implementing a server browser and dropping the game's price. Maybe even making it a free-to-play game. Who would have guessed that a full-price multiplayer-only, always-online game that some may call a hero shooter, made in the 2020s by a big company probably piggybacking off of the success of Overwatch, would fail? Jokes aside, there's so many games out there and the number keeps going up. A $60 online-only game that takes some convincing your friends to play is more than likely not gonna be on the top of the list for games you'd want to play. If I were to boil down why Exoprimal failed into one word, it'd be accessibility. It's too expensive, too unique, and too limited in that it doesn't offer options to players. The game will be inaccessible without a connection to Capcom servers, and as one of my friends said after I bought it, I'm not gonna buy a game that could be gone at any moment. I'll spare you from hearing more of this because it's extremely present on gaming YouTube, but it's true. Online only sucks and is a massive deterrent to players. Even if the game is supported forever, now more than ever is not the time where gamers expect that. But yeah, whining about modern gaming holistically is not what this video is about. It's about Exoprimal. Don't worry, the next video will be more holistic if that's what you're looking for. The first time you play a game is what may matter the most. Your first impression will likely cement what you do with the product in the foreseeable future. If you paid full price for a game to not work, connect, or allow you to play in a group or on your own, then a good first impression will not be met and the game might be refunded. The first time you boot the game, you'll have to make or link a Capcom account, and that can become at least part of a deterrent. I haven't run into connection issues on my own, and most of the time I can find lobbies with human players, mostly on Game Pass, but when my friend and I tried to queue together after he got the game, the matchmaker would not search for the both of us. After joining the official Discord to ask about it, I found out that this has been a thing since launch. This is an issue that affects people from enjoying the game and can give a bad first impression. If you can't even queue with your friend, then why would you spell exosuit with a U and an I? Bad impressions make people less likely to continue and just cut their losses. After trying to queue snipe my friend, and then finally making a custom match with 8 bots, we stopped playing for the night and my friend hasn't launched the game since. We had other games to play anyway. Sure, we could still play Exoprimal, and at times I want to, but the potential hassle is not worth it. Another bad impression can be finding a lobby with no human players. There's no real point in playing a completely dead game. less players means more bot matches. Since bot matches are more boring, you'll have less players playing when they run into bot matches, which makes more bot matches, which makes less players. To be honest, I still have some fun with bots, but it's not as much for obvious reasons. Exoprimal did not start on the strongest foot. I remember watching a Capcom livestream when I first saw its reveal. Now, as much as YouTube's livestream comments are just brain rot, there was a fairly common sentiment that was echoing in the chat during the reveal. There was a sea of people all asking for new Capcom games for existing IPs. Dead Rising, Resident Evil, Monster Hunter, Devil May Cry, and especially Dino Crisis were all being talked about in the chat, never to be mentioned by Capcom. In a lot of people's minds, Exoprimal took up development time for other games that have been keeping fans waiting. Exoprimal's price and free-to-play elements also caused a stir for some people with valid complaints. Full price for a live service game isn't something that is reliable for having a functioning ecosystem. Making accounts steers some people away, and always online gameplay isn't on the top of everyone's list. A lot of people probably glanced at Exoprimal and just said no, and I can't blame them. 9 pages later, is Exoprimal fun? I genuinely enjoy the game, and that's the problem. I would enjoy it even more with more people. I'm glad it's on Game Pass so my matches aren't filled with bots. I bought the game because I'm an idiot, and you should too when it's on a $20 sale. Okay, maybe that's not the best suggestion. I can't recommend throwing money at a product on the off chance it'll last for long. That's what's wrong. I want the game to be more alive, but I don't think more people should be forced to play a dead game just to serve as life support. There's so many reasons why this game didn't work, but the lack of fun isn't really a reason in my opinion. I already answered why the game failed, but why would I bother making a video about it if I didn't at least care? The game did not fail because of its entertainment value. It mostly failed because of external reasons. Honestly, I think the game could have succeeded if it were cheaper or free. That's the primary reason. People are not only more likely able to look away from flaws in cheaper products, but they're also more likely to be able to engage with said free products, especially with others. Before doing the whole ending spiel, I wanted to at least bring some attention to positive parts of the game that I left out due to them not being relevant. First off, the game's progression is a welcome sight. It's vaguely like Call of Duty of old. You're rewarded for playing the game with various bonuses. After leveling up in both player and suit level, you'll unlock modifiers that can be used on your exosuits. These modules range from a small general buff to something that changes specific suit fundamentals slightly. For example, more uses of abilities, quicker cooldowns, extra defensive stats, or extra damage circumstantially are all modules that you can equip. Over time, you'll also unlock cosmetics, such as emblems and title cards, that reflect specific criteria met in-game, like exosuit levels, damage done, and just general progression. And the best part of progression, variants. Each of the 10 suits has an alpha and beta variant. To unlock the alpha variant, you need to level up any base suit to 20, and for the beta variant, level alpha to 10. This doesn't take too terribly long, especially with double XP running half of the time, and is worth it if you're seeking variety in your main suits. These variants mostly just change the primary attack of the suit, but are still a welcome change in playstyle. For example, my main, Fat Genji's playstyle slightly changes. Instead of having a counterattack that primarily does damage, my counter would freeze enemies with the alpha variant, or summon a tornado with the beta variant. These changes affect my approach to situations and how I might use my counterattack situationally. Having 10 suits with 2 extra variants each, there's a lot of variety, especially when speccing out your suits with different modules. One of the best things is being able to switch your suits in the middle of action so you can adjust your playstyle with what the team composition might need. People are max level in the game, so that either means they're cheating or they just enjoy the game and have been playing it since launch. Just to cope, we'll say that the latter is true and Exoprimal kept people engaged for over a year. Every few months, Exoprimal got a title update, which added free content into the game, such as updating the variant roster, adding post-game content and modes, implementing crossovers and events, and the usual balance changes. In these updates, we got a few crossovers. Title Update 2 gave us a Street Fighter collab with skins and cosmetics. Update 3 gave us a Monster Hunter collab with cosmetics and a Rathalos fight. And for the final update, we got a Mega Man collab with more cosmetics. Capcom didn't overdo it with crossovers and collabs, and there were some nice cosmetics to come out of it. so I view their post-launch content as fairly positive. It wasn't amazing by any means, but the game kept a balance of identity that other games don't really stick to. So after the game's 4th title update, or I guess season, they pretty much announced that support would end, or at least content would stop. The servers would still run, but the game would remain in an untouched state. So how's the game now? Well, on a monthly basis, content rotates, double XP is active for over half of the time, and endgame events are also on rotation. So with the game not super alive, you can experience it how it was at various points throughout its lifecycle, barring balance changes. If you even care about battle passes, they also rotate, almost completely removing FOMO for informed players. You don't get to choose progression, but you aren't time gated anymore, which honestly I'm really thankful for, considering the industry's so-called standards of battle passes. So that's it. Buy Exoprimal so it doesn't die even more. If you don't, it's all your fault and I'll never forgive you. Just kidding, it's all Capcom's fault. They made a ton of missteps and Exoprimal could have turned out to be far better than it did in reality. At least the voice actors and everyone on the team got their sweet Capcom money, but sadly players are again left with an overpriced experience. At least it's fun, right? And this is where I bid you adieu. I make other videos such as game retrospectives and reviews, as well as topics that cover a wider breadth of gaming, and I guess videos off the gaming topic as a whole sometimes. But yeah, leave a like, comment, subscribe, and all of that stuff. I'm told if I say, comment your favorite Exoprimal moment, or something like that, then maybe someone will do that. No one listens to outros anymore, so I don't know why I'm rambling. Until next time, later days.